Hi, everyone. This is the Lies We Left podcast. I'm Erin, and this is a Four Sisters journey through trauma. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited that you're continuing to listen to this, even though it's been really hard, and we realize that memories are coming up in your own life, and hurt is coming up, and you don't really know, maybe you don't know what to do with this, but we're glad that you're listening, and we hope that you don't feel alone in your own trauma and in your own healing, because that's why we do this. And so just want to thank you again for listening to this. Today we're going to be talking about trauma. And I mean, there's so much to say about trauma, but you know, everyone has their own form of trauma. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about some of the science that we know about it, our own personal journey in trauma, our own knowledge of ourselves and how we have, you know, the signs of trauma. And yeah, we're just going to be talking about all that. So Brooke has done a lot of research on trauma, and so we're just going to be taking it from her.
Hey guys, I'm Brooke. Trauma is one of the things that I am most passionate about. So if you are a listener and you found yourself getting triggered, but you don't have memories and you're kind of wondering, you know, do I have trauma? This is a good jumping off point for you. Trauma, it can be used in two different contexts. In the physical, it means a physical injury. But in the psychological context, the term trauma means an emotional response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event. Trauma, in a nutshell, is anything that causes you emotional or physical pain too long, too often. And you can develop signs of trauma from that. Research highlights childhood trauma and attachment difficulties as the two factors in developing DID, dissociative identity disorder. The trauma is chronic and severe, occurring early in childhood. And one of these things, girls, you're going to love this. This blew my mind. Trauma isn't just the bad things that happened. It's also the good things that never happened.
Ooh, that
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to say, we aren't professionals, so I need to put that disclaimer since we are talking about all these facts and everything, but we aren't professionals.
Well, we're professional in the fact that we have a lot of trauma.
Yes.
And we can definitely talk about it. But
so, hold on. What would be an example of what you just got through saying, though?
Ooh, I could give an example.
Yes, please do.
So, 17 years old, not having an education, going with a friend. I thought about this in the shower today, and I remembered that. And
Shower thoughts.
Yeah, right. I do my best concentrating when I'm in the shower. No, going with a friend to, this is really hard to say, going with a friend to pick up supplies for college because they were going to college.
Oh, hell.
Oh, and I had forgotten about it, but I went home with the deepest sadness.
yeah.
Because going into Bed Bath & Beyond or Linens and things, I don't even remember which it was, getting rugs, getting slippers, and preparing my friend to leave off for college. Heartbreaking. The things, you know, that I never had, always wanted, that kind of a thing.
You know, I still to this day, every May, because that's when usually graduation happens. I don't like looking at the graduation cards. I don't like looking at the graduation teddy bears.
Yeah.
I don't like looking at any of it because it's very sad for me.
As is the start of school for fall for me.
Yes.
Really.
I have a hard time with that.
Brooke, I thought you said it's trauma is also repeat that for me.
Trauma isn't just the bad things that happened. It's also the good things that never happened. So for me, watching Anna
Those
Green.
weren't positive like
No.
The good things that never happened.
happened in your life.
okay.
Yeah.
So like for
So
me,
my friend's going to college, and I'm helping them prepare to leave, knowing that that's never going to be my reality.
Gotcha.
for me, it was watching Anna Green Gables, seeing how much Matthew Cuthbert and Marilla loved Anne,
I love
knowing
that.
Ooh,
I didn't get that.
ooh, why do you like that series?
Oh,
then?
I love that.
I love
series.
Anna Green
I
Gables.
see,
And it's funny, most girls who know Anna Green Gables, they have childhood trauma. They attach to that character because it's a character of hope. It's a character. Anne had
Well, I've got
so
plenty of
many
trauma, and
traumas.
that series makes my
I wonder
skin
if she
crawl.
had DID.
Well,
Because she lived in an imaginary
Yep.
world and she was always imagining.
Yep.
Huh. Okay, I never thought about that. Oh, another thing that is really hard for me, holidays. Holidays are very hard for me.
Mother's
And-
Day. Oh my God.
Yeah, Mother's Day, mother-daughter relationships, mother-father or not mother-father, daughter-father relationships. If I see like a really good one, that's really hard for me.
Yeah,
Every single
I
time.
straight up get jealous.
Here's one of the lesser known signs of trauma. It's daydreaming or wishing you had trauma. So it's the
Wishing
mind's, yeah.
that you had trauma?
Yeah, so I've done this in the past. I still catch myself doing it, and I've learned coping skills to do it, but I would be at work doing mindless activities, and I would daydream and imagine someone raping me over and over again. And
What?
yeah, it's a sign of trauma, childhood trauma. And when I talk to our
But you didn't want that.
No, I
Okay.
did not want that. But my therapist said it is the way that the mind self-heals. It's not that you're wishing it would happen. It's to help your brain cope with what had happened.
When I was younger, I always used to daydream. And I remember Dad got freaked out one time because I'd tell him as I was driving that I would just like zone out. Like I would just zone out and start like thinking about like random stuff and daydreaming, and that freaked him out. But I always thought that that was weird that I did that because other people didn't do that. So I didn't understand that
Yeah.
that was associated with my trauma when I got older.
Well, I think it's, from what I understand about that, because I do that a lot too, it's your brain trying to protect itself. Which, like, it starts off when you're a child and you're around an unsafe environment, and so your brain has to try to make it safe.
And that leads us into the next point. There's only 4 trauma responses. Everybody will have one of these 4, and it carries over from your childhood into your adult life. It's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
What's fawn?
I'm not familiar with fawn.
Ugh, we all do fawning
What's
to
fawn?
some point or degree in our lives. It's people pleasing to the point of forgetting yourself and your own needs.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Mind
Well, we're
blown.
women, so there's
I-
that.
I
I mean,
okay.
seriously, women are just completely preconditioned to be.
It's
Don't
in
get
our
me started.
DNA, yes, but
I don't think it's in our DNA. I think it's
It's in our-
Society,
yeah.
society, all the way.
well, it was, I don't know. But
Brooke's like, we're getting into feminist topics. I'm gonna change the subject.
Abstain, abstain.
oh my God. Childhood trauma. Oh my gosh. All right.
Sorry.
Childhood trauma can result in varying degrees of cognitive impairment and emotional deregulation that can lead to a host of problems. Attention, focus, learning disabilities, low self-esteem, impaired social skills, a healthy attachment in relationships, and sleep disturbances. How many of us here have all of those?
I
I
I'm Erin, and I am a childhood trauma victim.
So, we all went on a girls' trip,
Oh my gosh.
and bless her heart, we all kicked Erin out of the hotel room.
No,
And
you
it-
didn't kick me out. I willingly went out.
Inadvertently, she had to end up buying her own hotel room because we were all snoring so loudly. She couldn't sleep, poor thing. Had to get her own bloody hotel room.
Were all of us snoring though?
Oh, all of you were snoring.
That's funny.
No, and it wasn't like y'all weren't in unison.
The window.
So there was just like a constant sound, and you would think that I would somehow find comfort.
The curtains were
but it
blowing
was like-
in and out. The windows were rattling.
But it's like some of y'all would be like, it would like change. And some of y'all would be like, yeah, I'm not even going to make this sound. But it was like this deep sound. And then it would go into like a whistling and then back to deep. And then,
My microphone is shaking. I'm like laughing so hard right now.
I can't breathe.
but
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
despite, the room could be like completely quiet. Or the room could be, I always have to sleep with a box fan, or I use an app with brown noise. So I have to use both, and sometimes that still doesn't even help.
One of the days I mentioned that my throat was sore, and Aaron said, I bet it is. I felt so bad. I'm so sorry.
Cannot stop laughing.
Okay, it was terrible, and I feel like I could go into more stories about that night. I tried to sleep in the bathtub.
Were you traumatized by our story?
No, like I got pillows and I got blankets, and I tried to sleep in the bathtub.
Wait a
but it
second.
wasn't
Hold on.
helping.
Didn't you wake me up and you wanted me to switch places with Brooke or something?
Yes.
She couldn't wake me up.
Oh no, like I was like, honestly, it pisses me off that all y'all can sleep so well. Like I tried to wake Brooke up, and like I was literally shaking her. I mean, I was shaking her, and she was not waking up. And then suddenly she like bolts up, and she's like, "Huh?"
Okay. Oh, sorry guys for that long sidebar. Anyway,
Do you think childhood trauma is also like trying to change the subject?
Yes.
right? Okay, so that's a cool thing. Let's talk about the signs of childhood trauma that get overlooked as an adult, so that it'll carry over into your adult life. Being the mature or responsible one, you had that extreme need for that at a very young age. 2, overanalyzing. I'm guilty of that. 3, avoiding feeling your feelings. I have many family members who still do that. Perfectionism, people pleasing, needing to overachieve. I definitely struggle with that one. Ashley's looking at me all bug-eyed like, what the heck? Trouble trusting yourself.
Oh, okay. I
can
very
check
much
all those
relate.
boxes.
Yeah, I very much relate to.
Being an old soul.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Why are
Yeah.
y'all looking at me?
No, I'm not looking at you. I'm just like, what?
I feel attacked.
I've always liked the fact that I'm an old soul.
But
I did
it's a
too.
trauma response.
What?
Is that traumatic, or is that just because we had to be mature from a young age?
No, it's being, well, and that leads into the next one, being an empath or hyper awareness. We had to control and
Codependency.
that actually wasn't one of them. These are the lesser known.
Huh?
These are
Really?
this is the stuff that most people don't recognize as being childhood trauma.
I very much deal with this thing called analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
where I just freeze because I'm thinking about all the different avenues, what can go wrong.
Second guessing yourself, not
Yeah.
trusting your own intuition and your gut feelings. Blaming yourself when it's not your fault. The smallest things upset you. Loving yourself is hard. You're a compulsive caretaker. Ooh, I'm guilty of that one. Over-explaining.
Oh, man.
Subconsciously seeking out relationships that will prove that you're not worthy of love. All those are...
Wow.
Ashley is like deep in thought right now. I think we just blew her mind. But no, I check off like literally every one of those.
Okay, so get this. So I was working with my therapist on a self-awareness worksheet. And that was like probably the hardest thing for me to do. It was, so you go through these 5 sections: personal attributes, values and principles, emotional awareness, tendencies and habits, need assessment. So like personal attributes. Let me just like read one of the questions. What are your greatest talents or skills? That was like the first question. And I was like, what? What?
Yeah.
Like I had such a hard time answering that question.
Ooh, that is hard.
And then Which of your talents or skills give you the greatest sense of pride or satisfaction?
So I know that now, but I'm 38, and
Yeah.
I only found that out a little more than a year ago.
And then, okay, what are your 5 greatest strengths? I had such a hard time. But if you asked me to write any of this about y'all, I could
Exactly.
I could do it.
Yeah.
But about myself, I was like, what? Do I have 5 great strengths? It was very hard for me.
Yep. Yep.
Shit.
We're all deep in thought now. So, one of the things that develops from an over trauma response, if you have trauma for too often, for too long, one of the things that will happen is you develop DID. We talk a lot about DID on this podcast, which is dissociative identity disorder.
Wasn't it previously tagged as borderline
Multiple personality.
Oh, yeah,
Multiple
yeah.
personality.
Yeah.
There's a big stigma. I highly suggest people don't look into DID because there's still a stigma attached to the internet on it. I don't believe the stigma that goes along with it. DID is a totally new field, and it's a new way of thinking about trauma.
And we're going to have a professional come on here in a few episodes who can actually really break down what DID is and explain it probably much better than what you could find on the internet.
Yeah. And essentially, it develops to protect the child from the traumatic experience. In response to the trauma, the child will develop alters or parts to deal with it. And this is where, like, the Anna Green Gables comes in. You know, you fantasize, you daydream, and these parts are now formed. But it is the brain's way to develop and to protect you from, you know, the fight, the flight, the freeze, and the fawning responses. It's very interesting.
Now, I know with DID, it seems like there's different levels of it
Yes.
because you have people who might have a part of them that's a cat or something. Or would that still, I wonder if that's still DID. That's, I guess, going to be for the person, the professional who's coming, a question. But I think there are different levels of DID.
Absolutely.
Because, like, with my DID, it's me at different ages.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean, and I think this is where, for me, I was very shook up whenever I was diagnosed with this. I was very angry because
You were freaking out.
I was freaking out because I thought I was freaking loony. Like, I just thought I was crazy.
But it's different than multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, because it's not like I randomly will come out and be like, oh, look, I'm a 6-year-old Erin or anything like that. It's like how I respond to certain situations. And it really comes out in my marriage.
Yeah.
If, you know, because Travis is the one who can push my buttons the most. He's the one who can be the meanest to me. I can be the meanest to him. You know, we're married, okay? So sometimes when he triggers me, there's a part of me that comes out and it's like completely irrational. Or it's not like I just start acting like a 6-year-old or a teenager. It's that emotional, I think for me, that emotional part of me that's stuck in that age, that emotional part comes out.
Yeah.
So when the teenager part of me comes out, she's just like really angry and there's no rhyme or reason to her anger.
I think a big sign of trauma that gets overlooked, because as a society, I think that we very much encourage busyness, but I do think that busyness can be a sign of trauma, like excessive busyness, and you can't. That was more of how it was for me when I was younger, was just being so busy that you don't have time to think about your past because you're exhausting yourself.
And I think that falls under the overachieving aspect. We all are such hard workers. Like, there is no if, ands, or buts. We don't do anything half-assed. We will throw everything into it. I've seen each of my sisters get sick because they overwork themselves.
Oh, here's a good example. Okay, I apparently had 2 dislocated ribs.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was a muscle injury, and it was so incredibly painful, but there was things that I had to do. And so I'm like getting we're cleaning out the yard. There's rocks, there's trees that need to be cut up, all this other stuff. And I'm in so much freaking pain. And then I finally go to the chiropractor, and then he, for my regular adjustment. And he's like, yeah, you have 2 dislocated ribs. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm a badass. No, I'm just joking.
No, they've had to take me off
really
of job
stupid
sites
badass.
before because I've been so dehydrated, and I'm like, no, I'm good. And they're like, Brooke, sit down, shut up, drink this Pedialyte, and you're going home. You're going home. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm throwing up my toenails. But yeah, that we all have that.
I wonder if that's because you have to prove your sense of worth.
Mm-hmm.
The overachieving, because you were never told who you were as a kid. You were never validated for your strengths, all of this. And so you're constantly looking for approval, maybe by someone just acknowledging, oh, well, you're a hard worker.
There's a lot of that, definitely. It spills over, though, because I'm in a male-dominated industry.
Oh, yeah, so you have to prove yourself.
Well, and it wasn't like I had this attitude, I'm a girl and I'm going to keep up with the guys. I just wanted to prove every day that I was worthy to be there, that I could bring my A game. I could do a little bit more. I could be more thorough, creative. I could handle the 10-hour shifts, the overtime, and the strenuous hours, and the working in the elements. I mean, it was an honor. But I love working with men, so it wasn't necessary. Well, yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Maybe the reason why you like working with men is because you're trying to get their affirmation, because you never got it from your father.
no, I just don't like working with women.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, an office setting where women are catty and gossip, and there's
that's not
backbiting.
That's not every.
But then I went into a
situation.
male-dominated industry, and I realized men are just as bad as the women.
Dude, they can be nasty too.
Oh my gosh,
Ugh.
so cutthroat, it's bad. Anyway, so here's another thing that I thought was interesting. If you self-isolate when you get overwhelmed, you probably had to solve your own problems as a child. I self-isolate.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Anytime I get sick, I just want to be alone.
Yeah.
And it's because no one took care of me when I was sick.
When I get overwhelmed, I can't talk. You guys have seen me to that point. It's like deer in the headlights. I get overwhelmed, and I just want to be in my room by myself and just get to the point where I can even find words to say.
This is blowing me away. Like, that's why I'm so quiet. I'm just like, this is marinating.
I can tell. Ashley's over here with this look on her face like, whoa, whoa. So with childhood trauma, if we have gone over anything that is triggering, or, hey, that sounds like me, childhood trauma, it spills over into your adult life, because no matter how hard you try to go on, there's still a traumatized child living inside of you saying, please help me.
Oh.
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, oh.
I really I have such a different level, and I agree with that, but I have such a different level for people struggling with addiction. And things like that, because I know, that it's not just, you can't control yourself. It's not just, there's reasons why people struggle with the things that they struggle with.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Is so that we can, and that's the biggest, I think that's for all of us, that's the biggest perk about doing this, is when people reach out to us and tell us, hey, we're getting help now for this, because there are reasons why you deal with the things that you deal with.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not a bad person for dealing with those things. That's a big thing too.
And people don't understand you can't move on from, you just can't move on. Trauma experiences are, you know, encoded within our central nervous system. If anyone who loves data, analyzing like I do, and nerds out to words and books, I highly suggest the book The Body Keeps the Score. It's deep. It's hard to get through. It's more of a scientific data analysis kind of read. But if you have that trauma, it is stuck in your body. And you can't just move on from it.
And on that same note, the more that you ignore your trauma, in my opinion, the worse that you will see yourself, like not performing, but just on a daily basis, you won't function as well because you're ignoring what needs to come out.
Yeah.
I've noticed that because then that goes hand in hand with denying your feelings and repressing those feelings. And I would also say another thing in reference to trauma, something that I figured out is that if you were in a home or in an environment that did not allow you to express your feelings because you were taught that they were wrong or they were inappropriate, or you just weren't in a safe environment to be able to do that, one thing that you'll notice is as you get older, like you start repressing all these emotions. And when you get angry, it's like you can't physically show that you're angry. You just shut down, or, you know, you do whatever your response is. And you've got to be able to allow yourself a healthy and safe space to start analyzing your feelings. In this moment, okay, this situation, did this make me feel upset? And I know that this sounds like kindergarten, but it really isn't. I had to do this like just last year because I was so angry, but I wasn't allowing myself to feel the anger. So I started like flipping tires and like trying to like punch stuff to help get out my anger. And I think that that also, if you have DID, that does help your parts, but it also just helps your body because you're releasing.
Yeah.
And you're connecting the emotion with the memory.
But not everybody has that consciousness to go, I'm really angry, I need to go beat the crap out of something to get that release. Some people just go, I'm going to go get high.
Yeah.
I'm feeling something. I'm going to go do 4 shots of tequila and pass out. And it's legitimate. I get it.
I struggle with this. Do you guys struggle in this area? But it takes me days to figure out what has traumatized me.
Yes.
Yes.
I will, and I am so good about reading other people. I can be around a stranger and know immediately if they're safe or if they're a bad person. I can read emotions in my sisters and know what's going on and give them cutting edge advice. I mean, but when it comes to myself, I'm like, why am I having physical pain in my lower back? What is going on? And it takes me days to figure it out. It is the weirdest thing.
So in Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown believes that we actually can't read other people's emotions. It's very interesting.
You want to dive into that a little more?
Well, I'm just saying it. I haven't dove into that much. But
I can say that I've been working on this. God, I've been working on this.
Or feel other people's emotions
for
is one of
years.
those.
But instead of days and weeks, it now takes hours. And that is so huge for me. But that also is because Terry was very much like, what is going on with you, child? What is happening? And I would just be like, something's wrong and I have no idea. Go away from me. Everybody go away from me. I'm not fit, to be around people right now. And this has been a process of years working through it. And now it takes a couple of hours, but that is lightning fast compared to what it used to be. It took me weeks to figure out.
What are some things that you guys do when you notice trauma coming up? How do you self-soothe yourself?
Meditation.
I ignore.
I meditate. I light candles. If I'm not in nature, I'll put on scenescapes that play nature, and I'll focus on that, hopefully with sounds of nature too, like when the wind rolling in the breeze, stuff like that. Did I say meditation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a list.
I write myself letters, especially if I know, like I remember when I first started EMDR therapy, my therapist didn't even tell me this. This is just who I am. I want to fix things. I would rather know what I'm about to experience. So I wrote myself a letter. Brooke, this is the best thing. We are going to heal what was broken. You are going to get through it. It will be painful, but if you could just hold on and trust me, I'm going to get you to the other side. And I still use the power of writing, but also my love language is words of affirmation. That's a big one for me. It's my dominant one. So writing for me is very self-soothing.
I would say for me, what I do is, I think for me personally, it depends on what's going on, because sometimes I do think that I'm under attack and I deal with that spiritually. But then I think if that's not what's happening, and if it's like pure trauma, I really do try to sit there and analyze what's going on, and I kind of recap on like my day or what happened. And I think that that goes hand in hand with knowing what triggers you and really working through knowing your triggers. And so when I discovered that, I wouldn't say that I necessarily allow it, but I feel it. Mm-hmm. So if I just end up crying because of whatever it is that's bothering me, then I just cry. You know, or if I have something that I feel like I really need to work through because it's not making sense in my head, I either talk to Colin, I think, or I'll talk to one of y'all, or I journal if I feel like it's something that I just need to be more private about and just try to work through. But I think sometimes we all get very stuck in our heads. Just people in general can get stuck in their heads. So everything can seem a lot worse in your head than when you say it out loud. So sometimes even just talking to yourself out loud, I know that sounds crazy, but it's really not. If you just start kind of regurgitating everything and just saying it out loud, that can also be really helpful, because then you're like, oh, okay, I'm not in a threatening situation.
And that is interesting because we have each other to call. All of us, when we've hit that, kind of end of the road, we're like, we need to call one of the other. And
Rachel doesn't do that.
Ow.
She is.
Ow.
There was one time she called me and asked me to come to the house to stay with Trent and Mallory after school because she had to work some stuff out through therapy. Rachel has definitely showed vulnerability many times. Why is everyone laughing at me?
I mean,
I will say Rachel and Ashley are probably two of the most private out of all of us sisters.
Huh?
I think so. Dude, Ashley had a memory of Cindy molesting her in 2016, and it took her until 2019. I really said that in an accent, didn't I?
all I know to say is that
Ashley's just shaking her head like, yep.
Ashley's like, and I don't have to explain anything to you people. I feel the need to explain. That's just my personality, dude. Like, I am so open and honest with you guys. It is scary compared to other people. That's just how I am, unfortunately. That's just my personality. And a lot of that has to do with me being so uncomfortable with my own feelings that it takes me a long time to be okay with them.
Yeah.
And then get them out. But I will say, honestly, I am the well, I mean, other than this podcast, I'm very, very open and honest with you guys. No, I don't call you a lot, Erin. I'm sorry.
So
What's that song, Lean on Me? Lean on me.
For me, it is
when
leaning.
You're not
For
strong.
me, it is leaning. I know Erin doesn't think
I'll
it's
be
leaning, but it
there.
is leaning.
So this is kind
I'll
of a
help you.
Okay, are you done? All right. This is controversial even in the therapy world because there are two schools of thought. What are the two? Well, I'm not going to go into it. Anyway, Do you guys believe that trauma can be passed down generationally?
Yes.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yeah, for sure.
I do too. But there are some people who say no. There are some people who really
Now I haven't looked into it enough.
Now here's the kicker. This is where the controversy comes in. Do you believe DID can be passed down generationally?
I don't know. You're asking non-professionals this. So
I think people who have DID can, if they're passing on the abuse, then I think that in turn can give the other person DID. But I mean, it's not like genetic or anything like that. But I think if one person has DID and if they act out of their DID because they haven't worked through it, then yes, I do think that can pass along. But it's not because it's genetic. It's because that scientifically our bodies have to respond.
They're in a state.
well,
Yes.
Well, there's nature versus nurture
Yeah.
as well. Oh shit. Okay.
See, and that's where the controversy comes in. And then it opens up the discussion for, well, is DID a spiritual thing in the spiritual world? Like, what is DID? It opens up such a wide variety of topics. It's one of the things that people are just really now grasping with these questions.
Well, and for the sake of, I mean, we'll have an entire episode for DID where we really dive into that.
I don't know enough about it. I know that definitely I feel like trauma is multi-generational. Absolutely. Because I mean, how couldn't it be?
Yeah.
I mean I've been in therapy for a very, very long time, but I've passed on some of my failures to my kiddos inadvertently. Probably more my son than my daughter because he's older and it took me a long time to get help. But he struggles with some anxiety about some stuff, and I know that's because of the way I parented him. I know it is, and we've talked about it, and it's not, a clinical level, but he has that pause and that jerk reaction because his mom was always like, what's going to happen, that kind of a thing.
I think the way that you just have to look at it is this. It's pretty simple. So we all experience trauma, okay? Back it up a little bit. What about Dad and Cindy? Did they have trauma?
Oh, God.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
Cindy especially had years of sexual abuse to her.
Yeah.
Okay. And then go back even further. Like if you keep going past to generation to absolutely it passes down. There's
Yeah.
no way that it doesn't.
I think there is a spiritual aspect to it.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, whether you believe in God, whether I do believe that we are spiritual beings. We have a spirit. And I think that's why we're so unique, but I do think that there is a component to the spiritual realm and how trauma is and how it is passed down. And some people are laughing right now, and so I'm losing my train
they're
of thought.
They're laughing at
Childhood trauma right now. I just lost my train of thought. No,
I'm sorry.
No.
No, there is a spiritual aspect.
But I will say, I personally believe, and not everyone believes this, that you can put a stop to this. You can say no to years, maybe hundreds of years, to trauma that you don't even know about.
Yep.
You can say no to it, and you can be the person that stands. I think of a warrior, that stands and says, this will not happen to me any longer. It stops with me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pass it on to my children. And, like you were saying, Rachel, I've done a number to my oldest son. I mean, he has anxiety, and I'm certain that it is because of me,
I mean,
and
girl, I'm right there with you.
but what
Right there
I
with
have
you.
the power to do, and I know what you're doing with Trent, is we're apologizing. we're apologizing and we're paying more attention to our kids' feelings and we're acknowledging them and we're giving them the tools that we never had and maybe that no one in our generational line had ever had.
Yeah.
And I think that we
sure.
have to see the hope in that
Yes.
as well.
Oh, yes.
We
My
are
kids,
in control.
Your kids and my kids have it so good.
They do.
So good
But
compared to you and I.
But still, I mean, I look at, my failures as a parent, and for goodness sakes, I only have a 12-year-old, My child is 12. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I passed so much anxiety to Sawyer.
They still think you hung the moon. They love you.
They do love me, and
they think you're a good parent.
it's funny, every single night, it's like, I'm so tired, but that's when Sawyer wants to talk about the most deep subjects.
Aw.
What is
I love
life?
him.
Why do people hurt people? And I'm like, oh shit, boy, I don't know.
He's the sweetest.
You know,
he's
most
a deep
precious.
thinker.
He's
I
a
love
deep
Sawyer.
thinker.
I love Sawyer.
But yeah, I think that we have the power to stand up for what has been done.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing that, in another episode we'll talk about mental health, but I think as far as anxiety goes, think about Dad and his
Good
anxiety.
grief.
And here's the thing. I'm not trying to sit here and say that everything in life is about Dad and Cindy and we don't need to take ownership over our own mental health. That's exactly the point, is that you recognize that you have it in yourself and you deal with it. You work it out and you figure out how you need to address it as an individual. But
Case in point, or you don't deal with it and you die at 58, like my dad did.
yeah.
And we literally had conversations where I said, please get into therapy. Please get into therapy. You're only sleeping 3 hours a night. Please get into therapy. And he would say, yeah, I know I need to, but it's just too late for me. It's not too late. It's literally a matter of life and death.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us at the Lies We Left podcast. I want to leave our listeners with this one question. What do you need? What does that little child, what didn't they get? What can you do to help that wounded little boy or that wounded little girl deep inside of you? How can you help them feel safe? And we will see you on the next episode of the Lies We Left podcast. We love you. Have a great one.